Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whichever city, whichever country you're joining in from. I can see quite a few of you who have started streaming in, and we have a very, very exciting masterclass lined up to you today. But before I go into the details, very quickly in the chat window, if you could let me know which city are you dialing in from. So, to all 50 plus of you and counting who have entered the room, very quickly in the chat window, which city are you dialing in from? We really want to know where our audiences are coming in from, where exactly are you based? Because we have people here who've come in all the way from the US. So we have people from Ranchi, Pune, Delhi, Bangalore, Maharashtra, Pune, Kathmandu. Wow, the length and breadth of India. Anyone who's from outside of India, anyone from abroad who's tuned into the session today, let us know. It would be good to see some uh, foreign faces as well. There are people from Guwahati, Udaipur. Fantastic. So, as I said, we have a very, very exciting masterclass today on data driven pricing, how AI and analytics are transforming pricing in organizations, which is brought to you by UIC Business, which is part of the University of Illinois Chicago. I can see a few of you who've joined in from Ethiopia as well. Thank you so much for making it. And yes, we are going to be learning a lot more about the impact of AI and analytics on modern pricing strategies, the buzzwords for today. And I'm sure you're all excited to know more. But before I jump into that, a little bit about the university. UIC Business is a part of the University of Illinois Chicago. It is a globally recognized research driven business school offering master's programs and MBA, so specialized master's degrees in business analytics, marketing, supply chain management. The college is a hub for innovation and leadership development with a diverse student body and a strong global alumni network of 52,000 plus alumni, and, and is located in Chicago, one of the thriving business ecosystems. I'm sure for all of you who are looking to study abroad and with the US being your preference of choice, this is a university which is definitely something you should look out for, offers world-class education and career opportunities. Before I go in further, I'm just going to quickly introduce the panel. For those of you who've just tuned in, my name is Sabahat Herzog. I'm the Associate Director at Seed Global Education. We are a UK headquartered company which facilitates interactions between top global universities like the one that we have here with us today and prospective students like yourself, giving you a chance to connect with the faculty and the admissions team, giving you a taste of the programs being offered, and therefore helping you making the right choices about your higher education and career plans. On the panel with me today is Professor Vijay Kamble, who is an Associate Professor of Information and Decision Sciences at UIC Business with a courtesy affiliation in computer science. His research focuses on optimizing online platform and marketplaces, particularly in learning and experimentation. Sorry, am I audible now? Right. So I was just saying, Professor Kamble, thank you so much for joining us today. Along with him, we have Jeff, who's the Assistant Dean for Business and Recruitment. Jeff, sorry again. Shit, what's going on? I am so sorry. There seems to be a network issue on my end. Can you hear me now? I am extremely sorry about that. So like I was saying that, yes, we have a very, very exciting topic which is taking place today. And I see we are close to 170 of you in the audience. What I'm going to do is before I jump into the masterclass, I'm going to run my first poll question for this evening. So on the screen in front of you, to all those of you who have just tuned in, which aspect of AI in pricing are you most interested in learning about? Is it predictive analysis for demand forecasting? Do you want to know how you can use AI to set best prices for profitability and sales? Are you someone who's interested in tracking and responding to competitor prices in real time? Are you someone who's looking to know a little bit more about tailoring prices based on customer behavior and preferences? Or are you someone who's just looking to learn something else? So, very quickly on the chat, on the screen in front of you, the first poll question: If you could all just go and cast your vote there. I know a few of you are putting in some answers in the chat window. Guys, go and cast your vote there. We really want to know what is it that you're most excited about. And I promise you, I'm going to hand over to the faculty right after this so we can get started. So I'm going to wait a few more seconds while all of you go and cast your votes. On the screen in front of you, the first poll question for this evening. Great. I can see a lot of you who have answered. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results in front of you. So a lot of you are looking to learn a lot more about using AI to set best practice for profitability and sales, closely followed by how you can tailor prices based on customer behavior and preferences and the rest. So thank you so much for all those of you who participated in the poll. I would now request Professor Kamble to please go ahead and get started with his presentation. Professor, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you very much, Sabat. It's great being here. Hello, everyone. I can't see you, but really excited to be here and really excited to be talking about this topic, which has been one of my central sort of areas of research and thinking for the last few years. I know it's odd for you to see me sitting in a sweater when it's probably really hot in India right now. Just to inform you, it's minus 14 degrees outside in Chicago. And so that's why I am wearing a sweater also inside my home. So I know it's odd for you to see this, but just to explain how big a difference it is in the weather over here and over there. So let me share my screen. Great. So I'm assuming everybody can see this. Great. So like I said, so this is a topic that's been very close to my heart for the last couple of years. And this is an extremely exciting area to be in, which is basically how do you inform pricing in organizations using data? Okay. And so I'm going to give you a very quick overview of this field. And here's what the agenda is going to be. So first, I'm going to try and convince you why pricing matters in an organization. Next, I'm going to talk about just the evolution of the science of pricing over time and how companies used to think about it maybe 30 years ago and how they're thinking about it right now. Okay. And then finally, I'll give you some pointers about like how recent advances in AI and analytics are transforming this field of pricing. Okay, so that's basically the game plan. Good. So first, the question of why pricing matters. Okay, and this is something that it's not an obvious question, like why pricing matters. In fact, like organizations historically did not really pay much attention to this concern for a long time, until there was sort of like a convergence of a lot of different business leaders, education professionals, academics, who realized how big an impact pricing has on the bottom line and the top line of a company. So this is basically quoting from a 1992 study. It says that the most effective way for a company to impact its profit is the price. Okay? And if you think about like how can a company increase its profit, there are a few ways. Okay? So one way is increase the volume of demand, increase the number of people who are buying your things. Second way is reducing your operating costs. So sort of reduce the cost of operating of like selling to every customer, like serving each customer. And the third big point is potentially improving the pricing. And out of all of these, it was discovered that pricing is the most effective way. To the extent that suppose if you have two options, you can work on marketing and you can try to increase the number of people who are buying your item, you're buying your product or services by 1%, or you can invest into pricing and you can improve the price by 1%. It was found out that in typical sort of pricing scenarios, typical business scenarios, the impact of 1% improvement increase in price on the profits is about 11.1%, as opposed to just 3.3% on 1% increase in volume, right? And imagine really the scale of this, right? So if you want to increase 1% of your customer base, imagine the amount of marketing effort it's going to take. Like think about like Apple, it is like selling 100 million, iPhones. Adding that 1% to their consumer base is going to take so much marketing efforts. Imagine as opposed to that, just improving your price by 1% is something that you can do sitting within the organization, just looking at data And it's just a much more cost-effective way of improving your profits. Okay, so this is something that people realized over the last 30 years. Like 92 was like really this paper was a watershed paper, which helped companies realize like how big an impact pricing has. Okay, so with that, I want to give you like a brief history of how companies have thought about pricing and how they now think about pricing. Okay, so it's just a quick overview of pricing. So let's take up a very simple example of I'm a restaurant and I have a burger in my restaurant that I sell. And the question is, how do I price this burger? Okay. Now, traditionally, what people used to do, and it's surprising to see like how many restaurants still do this, is they just sit around a table and they say, hey, you know what? Let's do this. Okay. First approach, what is called a cost plus pricing model. This burger cost me $10 to make. I take $10 to make this burger, and I want to target a 40% margin. So let me say that the price of the burger should be 14. Okay. What is the problem with this? By doing cost plus pricing, you're completely ignoring the market demand. You're completely ignoring the customer. You're saying that, hey, I want to get a 40% margin, and that's why the price is going to be this. Okay. Now, what's the problem here? The problem here is that it often leads to really incorrect pricing. So imagine the situation where your burger is so good that even if you had increased the price from $14 to $16, the demand would have remained the same. The same number of customers would have come in and purchased your burger. And you're leaving a lot of money on the table in that case by pricing it at $14. Or it could be the other way around, right? Maybe the competition is pricing this burger at $12 and your $14 is just too expensive. And maybe if you just dropped it down by maybe $1 or $2, suddenly so many more people would buy it that it will more than make up for the loss in revenue for each burger. Okay, so essentially this would lead to completely incorrect pricing decisions because you're making this decision in a complete silo. You're not really looking at what the customers are willing to pay, how the demand is going to behave if you change the price. So this is in fact like many companies still do cost plus pricing, which is quite surprising to me, but like slowly they're moving away from it. Now, another approach of doing pricing is competition-based pricing. You say, okay, you know what? Since nearby restaurants are pricing this burger at $12, maybe I should price it at $11.99 just to get customers. Now, the problem here is that competition-based pricing does not leverage strengths that you have relative to your competition. Like, for example, your burger could be a really amazing burger. It's much better than the burgers that others are offering, in which case you don't really need to price match. You can actually price it at $14, $15, and still you'll get the same customers. And moreover, if you get into this sort of mentality of, hey, I want to undercut my competitors, it can lead to unnecessary price wars. Like, so they start undercutting each other and just it leads to reduced profit margins all across the board. Okay, so that brings me to what is the modern view of pricing? So what is the modern analytical view of pricing? And so the modern analytical view of pricing requires you to look at this fundamental ingredient, this really key ingredient, which is the market demand function. Okay. This function is telling me if I change my price, how is my demand volume changing? If I change my price of the burger, say from $10, which is my cost, all the way to say $16, how is the demand for this burger changing? And this demand would be in response to everything that is going on in the market, in response to competition, in response to how they're pricing, in response to how what the customers want right now. Do they want to see like a particular kind of burger versus some other kind of burger? So given all of the market characteristics, at the end of the day, what matters to me as a business professional is how does this curve look like? How does this market demand function look like? As if I change my price, how is my demand going to change? Okay. So essentially, once you have this market demand function, then you can set the ball rolling. You can figure out, you can set up this problem of like, what should my optimal price be? Okay. So way to do that is you can define the profit at a given price to be the unit profit, which is profit minus the cost. This is basically the profit they will be making by selling each unit multiplied by the demand at that price. Okay, so how many units will you be selling at that price? Maybe at $14, you'll be selling 1,000 burgers per day, right? So that's the demand at that price multiplied by the price minus the cost, which is the unit profit, is the overall profit function. And that's what you want to optimize. And this is what a typical profit function would look like. Okay, so let me just tell you. So for example, you start at the price being the unit cost. Of course, your profit is going to be zero because your price is so low that you're essentially not making any profit on the single unit. And so regardless of what the demand is going to be, your profit is going to be zero. In fact, at that price, your demand is going to be the highest, right? So if your price is equal to the cost, your price is low, that's when your demand is going to be the highest. But that's completely useless to you because every person who is buying is not giving you any profit because you're selling at cost. On the other end of the spectrum, if you price very high, imagine if you think that, hey, my burger is amazing, let me price it at $20. What's going to happen is that, well, if you do sell that burger, you're going to be making a lot of profit. Okay, every time you sell a burger, you're going to be making a lot of profit. However, you're not going to be selling many burgers, right? Because nobody is going to be interested in paying $20. Okay, so neither of these two ends of the spectrum, like either you price very high but your demand volume is low, or you price very low, demand is high but then you're not making any profit. So neither of these two extremes could be the right thing to do. The right thing to do is somewhere in the middle. Okay, so there's some optimal price at which your profit function gets maximized. And the goal of any sort of company, any sort of modern analytical view company is going to be to try and optimize this demand function, this revenue function, this profit function, so as to figure out what their optimal price is. Okay, now this is a very simplistic view. Still, like it's already, it's a modern view, but it's still a very simplistic view, assuming there's a single product that you're trying to sell, and assuming that this demand function is something that is known and something that is stable. However, the big challenges in pricing, the reason why it's a really hard thing to get right, even with this modern view, is the fact that the demand function is typically unknown. For a company, they do not have a view of what this demand function looks like. They don't know how much the demand is going to drop or increase in response to changing prices. Moreover, the reason why it becomes even harder is that this demand function can change over time, right? So it need not be this case that the demand function that you see for a particular burger in the fall season remains the same in winter or remains the same in summer, right? In summer, people may want to have like more salads maybe. It also changes across different customer segments. You have one demand function for every customer segment. So imagine this burger restaurant wants to have a different price for students because there are students in the area who are not willing to pay as high amount of money. Now you have this issue of like figuring out what does the demand function look like for students, what does the demand function look like for the regular sort of attendees, and so it changes across different customer segments. And the final thing is that the demand function is not stationary. It depends on competing prices. So for example, if a very popular burger joint in your area is offering all its burgers for free, there is no one coming to you, right? Regardless of how you price your burger, your demand is going to be zero because like there's a competitor who essentially are giving away burgers for free. So that means that the demand function also depends on what the competitor's price is at this point. Okay, so that's the external price. But not only that, there are also competing prices internally. Think about your restaurant. If your steak, which is a very popular dish in the US, if it is cheap, then why would somebody go for a burger, right? So if essentially the price of what else you have on the menu is also going to impact the demand function for one particular product. Okay, because like people may prefer to do that to go for a steak because the price is low as opposed to going for a burger. Okay, so these are the different challenges why so first of all, you don't know what the market demand function is, and second thing is like this market demand function is also not stationary. It's changing over time. It's different for different customer segments, and it depends on what the market is pricing the competing goods. Okay, so all of these are extremely hard challenges to solve. And that's why you need the power of analytics, you need the power of AI to somehow deal with these challenges. And this is really where all the exciting work that is happening in pricing in organizations is at. Okay, so just to give you an example, let's think about the example of pricing US Open. So I like tennis, I like watching tennis. And let's think about like the very basic problem of like pricing a giant sporting event like the US Open. Okay, So if you look at the seat map of US Open, this is what the stadium looks like. Yeah, from the top, you have different sections. And let's suppose you have this view that people used to have, like these sports organizers used to have as early as like maybe like 30 years ago. This view was that, hey, you know what? I'm going to have one single price. No matter where you sit in the stadium, just one single price. And there is some demand function for that price. Like depending on what the price is, what is the aggregate demand you're going to be seeing for these seats? And hey, I'm going to say I'm going to optimize my profit given this demand function. But I think most of you would realize this is an extremely naive thing to do. The question of whether we should really set a single price is a really important question. So the idea here is that you're not selling the same thing, right? The stadium, one seat is not identical to the other. If you ask anyone like who watches tennis, nobody would want to sit in section 314 over say section 20, right? You want to be close to the action. So it is clear that these different seats have different value to customers. So it is really a naive thing to do to have a single price for all these seats. Okay, and so this is what US Open does. It creates sections of seats. So there are these blue rows, then there are these red rows, yellow rows, and then finally the dark blue purple rows, which are actually the most attractive rows, which are closest to the action, right? So essentially you have these four different products. Okay, and because you have four different products, you have these four different demand functions. Okay, and so now you have to figure out what is the price for each one of these products. And now the problem here is that these demand functions are not stable stationary demand functions. These are actually demand functions. So for example, the yellow demand function is for the case where every seat was a yellow type seat. So if all the seats were close enough to the stadium, what would the demand function look like for those kinds of seats? But in reality, what's going to happen is that the demand function of blue seats is going to depend on what is the price for the red seats. Or the demand function for the purple seats is going to depend on what is the price for the blue seats, and so on and so forth. So essentially, each of these demand functions depends on what the price is for the other type of seat that you're selling. So what you're looking at is this multi-product demand function, which tells you, given the price of the red seats, blue seats, yellow seats, purple seats, what is the demand you'll be seeing for the red seats, blue seats, yellow seats, and purple seats? Okay, so this is this very complicated object of this multi-product demand function that you're trying to optimize by setting the right prices when you're pricing. Okay, so just to give you the scale of difficulty you have when you're trying to price something appropriately. Okay, now that's not just the complication. Like there's an additional complication, which is the fact that these demand functions change over time, right? Especially in sporting events, as things go along, you expected, for example, Novak Djokovic is a very popular player, and you were expecting him to reach the finals, but then at some point in the first round itself, he got eliminated. Now suddenly the demand function for the final seat is going to go down, right? So depending on what's happening at these sporting events, the demand functions are changing because like some players are proceeding, some players are not proceeding. And there are all kinds of other random things that happen. Like, for example, in US Open, I'm showing this chart where, as soon as Serena Williams announced that she's going to be retiring after that particular US Open, the prices just shot up because everybody wanted to see her live for her last, Grand Slam appearance. So this is just to show you, like, how complicated it can get to get the price right. Okay, so the central pricing question is, how do you respond to unknown variations in demand patterns over different customer segments, different times, different points in time, different products or services by appropriate pricing so as to maximize profit? And on top of it, you have new challenges, right? You cannot be an organization that is entirely focused on maximizing profit, right? Because maximizing profit can be at odds with a lot of different ethical constraints, fairness constraints that you may have. So you want to learn these demand functions, do optimal pricing to maximize profit under the constraint that the prices that you set are in some sense fair, ethical. They're not leading to any imbalances. They're not leading to any discriminations. For example, there are several ways there are several kinds of price discrimination which are just banned. Like, for example, you cannot set a different price for men and women. You cannot set a different price for, you cannot discriminate on the basis of race, on the basis of ethnicity, on the basis of gender, and so on and so forth, right? So you have to satisfy all of these constraints. So that becomes like this giant, this is like essentially the view of like what the pricing problem looks like. Good. So now let me talk very briefly about how AI and analytics are transforming pricing. Okay. So the biggest advances happened in the last 15 years with the advent of big data analytics. Our computing capabilities increased significantly over the last 15 years, so that now we are able to process large swaths of data to learn the kind of insights that we need to make optimal pricing decisions, right? So imagine what we need. We need to learn these giant demand functions. We need to learn like these giant multi-product demand functions, to figure out like how demand functions change over time. It's an extremely difficult learning problem. And at least what big data analytics is doing is that if a company has a ton of historical data on what prices it had set, what demand it saw, then now we're in a position where we can consume all of that large data and actually try and learn these demand functions where it was not possible before. Okay, so you can learn demand functions for fine-grained customer segments, right? It was not possible before. So you did not have enough data. You're not able to, you did not have enough capability to process data so that you can like learn demand functions for different kinds of customer segments. It would have been an amazing thing even if you did it for one customer segment. So all of these different challenging aspects became a little bit more accessible with the advent of big data analytics. So just to give you a quick overview of the kind of techniques that have been very popular in learning demand functions. So the most basic technique is regression analysis. Maybe some of you have encountered ideas like linear regression, multinomial regression, ideas like generalized linear models. So essentially, the idea is that if the price and demand relationship is simple, if the demand is somewhat simply described as a function of the price, then you can have these like very simple regression-based models, which are very interpretable, which will tell you, hey, if you change the price by X%, here's how your demand would change. If you change something else by Y%, then here's how your demand would change. And an important point here is that it's not just the price that is going into the demand function. There are also all kinds of other covariates, other aspects that also matter to how demand behaves in the function of price. So just to give you an example, if you're selling ice cream in Mumbai right now, it's going to sell like hotcakes, right? However, if you're trying to sell ice cream in Chicago right now, nobody's going to buy it, right? And because the fact is that the temperature in Chicago is like it's freezing, right, as opposed to in Mumbai. So temperature is a very important covariate that's going to dictate how the demand behaves as a function of price. So regression analysis is going to allow you to figure out what is the impact of changes in prices, changes in temperature on demand. Many times, what happens is that this function that describes how a price or other covariates, these other features impact the demand is very complicated. It's very complex. In which case, and this is something that is the biggest advancement in the last 10 to 15 years, you can use these models called deep neural networks. These are deep learning models. What are these models? These are essentially really complex machine learning models that can model very complex relationships between input and output. Like input could be price, output could be demand. And these models are essentially, simulating brain function. And because they simulate brain function, in some sense, they are able to capture really complex relationships. Okay. So the advent of deep neural networks has really advanced our capability of modeling really complex relationships between price and demand and price and different covariates and demand. And that, of course, combined with like with strong computing capabilities that we have developed over the last few years. Now, the other approach you can take, hey, you know what? I don't want to go into this process of like learning entire demand functions. In fact, that is probably a prudent thing to do because, imagine like how complex the demand function would be like for US pricing US Open. So I think it's in many cases just like a hopeless task of learning entire demand functions, in which case the most natural thing to do, and this is what most companies do, is they do iterative price optimization. So what they do is they start with a particular price. Hey, this is the price that I have for a particular object. Now, let me just figure out a better price. Let me figure out if I change the price by, say, a delta amount higher, how is that going to impact my profit? Okay. And the way to test that is this theory of A/B testing. So what is A/B testing? Well, for a certain period, you have a given incumbent price. And after that period, you change that price to a little higher or a little lower, depending on what you want to do. And then you change, then you observe what is the change in the profit. And then you figure out by comparing these two scenarios, did your profit change for the better or for the worse, and with what confidence? And so by that, you discovered, hey, actually this price movement was the right price movement. Okay, and so you increase the price, and then you're happy, my profit is more. And then you cycle back. You sort of like, you iterate again. You try to figure out what is the next best change in the price. Okay. So this iterative approach is a lot more practical in situations where your goal is to optimize daily complex demand functions. You make incremental changes and you see like how that is impacting your model. Okay. Now, let me tell you how AI is coming in. Okay. So artificial intelligence is essentially replacing human decision making, right? It's all about replacing human decision making, replacing human intuition, and generalizing beyond what you have seen. Okay? So the biggest technique in artificial intelligence that is used in pricing is called reinforcement learning. Okay? So if you think about this iterative optimization process that I talked about, you're going to say, hey, I'm going to change my price and I'm going to see what is the impact on the profit. And then depending on the impact, I'm going to either increase that price or decrease that price. If you think about this is something that can be automated. Okay? And this is exactly what reinforcement learning algorithms do. They allow you to design automated pricing algorithms. What these algorithms will do is they will experiment with prices, and they'll figure out what is a better price, and they'll change that price. So they'll do pricing, they'll collect data, they'll analyze that data, and they'll figure out what is the next best price. And you don't have to do anything, right? So essentially, these are algorithms that will just experiment with the environment, collect the data, figure out what the next best price is, and they'll keep doing this. And that's important because market characteristics are constantly changing, right? Competitors are setting different prices, people's tastes are evolving. And so you want to have an algorithm that automatically adapts to all of those changes and experiments with prices, figure out the next better price and prices. The biggest example of where reinforcement learning is used for automated pricing is Uber and Lyft, right? Don't you wonder about like how Uber is doing this, or how Lyft is doing this, or how in India Ola is doing this, which is basically depending on the geography, depending on the length of the ride, they are deciding a price, and that price is constantly changing, right? And that price is constantly changing in response to demand and supply characteristic. If there is more demand, less supply, the price goes up. If there's less supply, if there's more supply, less demand, the price goes down. And also it responds well to competing prices. If Uber prices go down, Ola prices go down as well. If Uber prices go up, Ola prices go up as well. There is no one sitting in this organization looking at all these prices and deciding, hey, I'm going to change this price for every single geography. You have to automate this, okay? And so they are using these sophisticated reinforcement learning algorithms for automated pricing all across the board. Okay? So that's the example of Uber and Lyft. Another example, in Amazon, uses dynamic pricing, reinforcement learning-based pricing, to change the prices of objects depending on changing market characteristics, changing demand preferences. So this is just an example of how the price changed over time for this AMD processor. Okay, and you can see that this is not something that a human can do, right? This is something that is a result of a automated pricing algorithm. It's a reinforcement learning algorithm where this algorithm is trying to experiment with prices. And if you can see, the price experimentation is pretty frequent, right? So within a month, the price changed. So for example, over here, about 6 to 8 number of times. So it's experimenting very quickly and figuring out what should the optimal price be, okay? What is the other role of AI? So all of you have heard of generative AI. So generative AI, one of the biggest technologies that all of you have encountered as LLMs, large language models. So models like ChatGPT, GPT-4, Claude, and so on. How generative AI helps with pricing is the following. So many times when you launch new products, you have absolutely no data to figure out what the right price is. Okay? And typically companies rely on market surveys. They'll ask questions, they'll reach out to their target audience, they'll ask a few questions, how much are you going to price, how much are you going to willing to pay for this particular object, and so on and so forth. But collecting that data is hard. And also you cannot do that at scale. So what companies are increasingly doing is they're using generative AI to create agents which can represent consumers, and having these AI agents answer these questions. So you give an AI agent a profile. Hey, imagine you are a college student between 20 and 25 living in India and having these tastes. Can you tell me which of these products would you buy and how much would you pay for this product? So you don't have to actually reach out to a person of that type. You can ask the AI to behave like that. Of course, this is assuming that the AI, the large language models, know enough about the different sort of demographics in the world and their tastes and preferences that they are able to give like reasonably good answers to these questions. So this is a big way of like collecting synthetic data, appending your existing data so that you can train these sophisticated models. Okay. So I'm at the end, so let me stop here. Just to conclude, pricing is one of the most sort of central operational concerns in any organization. And this is an extremely exciting time to be in the space. So if I have several friends in consulting in companies like McKinsey, companies like C3.ai, and I'm myself working at Amazon, the domain of pricing is one of the most exciting, the most lucrative domains, because there's a lot of work to be done at the confluence of ML and AI and pricing. And so a lot of advancements to be made. And because companies realize how important it is, there's a lot of money being poured in. So it's a really exciting space to be in at this interface of ML and pricing. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. And I hope that I was able to get you as excited as I am about this topic. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Kamble. That was very, very insightful. And I'm not sure if you can have a look at the chat window, but the questions are pouring in. So there are a lot of questions which we will be getting to shortly. But before we move on to that, I want to run my second poll question for this evening before I bring in Jeff to speak to us a little bit more about the university programs. I see quite a few questions around scholarships, application fee waivers, etc. So before I move to that, I am going to quickly run my second poll question, which is on the screen in front of you. We're close to a 200 plus audience right now. Very quickly on your screen, which graduate program interests you the most? Are you someone who's looking to pursue an MS in accounting? Is MBA something which is of interest to you? Are you someone who's looking to do an MS in business analytics, or MS in finance, MS in management information systems, or an MS in marketing? No answer is the wrong answer, as I say. So please go ahead and cast your polls and let us know which of these programs are you really keen on applying to. I'm going to keep this poll running for a couple of more minutes before I hand over to Jeff to speak to us a little bit more in detail about the university. To all those of you who are still looking to cast your votes, please go ahead and do so. And I would request everyone to please stay tuned. All of your questions, we will be taking them up post the presentation. In the meantime, if you have any more questions, please feel free to keep dropping those in the Q&A box. We will be taking them up shortly. So with that, I'm going to end this poll and publish the results. So the results are as follows. 50% of the audience is looking to pursue an MBA, closely followed by other programs as well. So Jeff, with that, over to you. Let's hear a little bit more about the MBA and the other program offerings at UIC Business.
Great. And can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. Thank you all for joining. Again, I am Jeff Jude. I serve as Assistant Dean for Recruitment for the College of Business, and want to thank Professor Vijay for his excellent presentation, and also my colleagues at SEED for putting this together. We'll go quickly through some of the admissions details and also the programs we offer here at UIC, but also want to make sure that we have enough time at the end to answer the questions that are in the chat. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about the picture that you see on the screen. This is not Photoshop. This is actually on campus. This, and one of the things that we're really proud of at UIC is our location. We are minutes from downtown, what we call the Loop, which is the financial sector or financial hub of Chicago. In addition, we're very close to a number of Fortune 500 companies. Google has a large presence in Chicago, which is less than 2 kilometers away. United Airlines, which is headquartered in that very tall black building that you see in the background, is in Chicago as well too. And one thing about the location is that you can literally get off a direct flight from New Delhi, take a train for about 220 rupees, and be on campus in about 45 minutes from the airport. So that's one of the great things about our location is we're in the heart of the city in a very dynamic and vibrant environment, and you're probably about 2 kilometers away from the lakefront as well too, which is really just like a huge open park for Chicago citizens. It's basically our backyard. There's about 30 kilometers of biking and running paths that in the summertime, it's great. As Professor Vijay alluded to, right now, not the best time to be at the beach or on the lakefront, but it really is our backyard that Chicagoans are so proud of. So I talked a little bit about location. Some of the other selling points that we have is that you will get a high value for your education at UIC Business as well too. We are a state-supported institution. That means our tuition fees are typically lower than other private institutions in the U.S. And a lot of our alums stay within the Chicago region as well too. Meaning that when it comes to apply for jobs in the Chicago region, chances are there's a UIC alum that has a high level position at a top company that you're looking at. We are also designated a Carnegie One research institution, and there's only about 170 or so universities in the US that have that designation, and only 6 in the state of Illinois. So we're really proud of that. That means our faculty are engaged in the highest level of research productivity. They have terminal degrees from top universities as well too. And as I alluded to earlier, our alums stay within the Chicago region typically upon graduation, meaning that they're working at some of those top companies close by to campus. Another differentiator is that we really stress soft skills in our curriculum as well too. With any of our degree programs, you will get very applicable hard skills that you can apply in the workplace environment. But having those soft skills is really going to set you apart and get you that initial first job and help you develop your career. So we have what is called iLead, which focuses on professional development, interpersonal communication, but it's done through improv techniques. So if you're familiar with the show Saturday Night Live, many of the cast members from Saturday Night Live have come from Second City, which is based in Chicago. And we use a lot of those same improv techniques from Second City in our iLead series for professional development and making sure that you can speak off the cuff, have those difficult conversations with your staff, et cetera. So it's a really important skill. Individuals that have taken this class have shared it really gets them out of their comfort zone, but very applicable when it comes to interviewing and then also in the workplace environment as well too. We're also proud of our rankings as well. UIC is consistently ranked as one of the most diverse campuses in the US, and also best value as well too. A number of our graduate business programs are ranked too. This includes US News ranking for our flexible MBA program, and our MS in Business Analytics, MS in Finance, and MS in Marketing programs are all ranked by QS World University Rankings. So really proud of those rankings, and it speaks to the quality of education that you'll receive at UIC Business. In regards to our degree offerings, we have our MBA program, which can be done on a full-time basis as an international student, along with 6 math science programs as well too. And 5 of those 6 MS programs are STEM designated, meaning that you can receive up to 3 years of optional practical training upon graduation. And those STEM designated programs are in accounting, business analytics, finance, management information systems, and supply chain and operations management. With each of our MS programs, each of them have 8 required classes that you'll take, which are 4 credit hours in length. And typically, these can be completed in 2 to 3 semesters on a full-time basis. I will say most students will complete them in about 3 semesters, especially if they do not have a background in that particular field. So say, for instance, you want to go pursue our MS in Finance program, but have not taken any finance courses, that's totally fine. We accept all majors for all of our different graduate business programs, but you will have some prerequisite courses that you take at the beginning of the program to make sure that you can handle the rigor of our program. And that goes for all of our MS programs. Our flexible MBA program typically can be completed in about 4 semesters on a full-time basis. It can be completed in as little as 3 semesters if you want to do an accelerated format. We do like to see 2 years of work, post-bachelor's work experience, but that can be waived for individuals that have a high GPA or good internship experience as well too. The program is 42 credit hours in length. You'll have 6 required core classes and then 4 required electives that you'll take that will make up your concentration. And we have a number of concentrations within the program. So if you're thinking about doing something like business analytics or management information systems, that's a great opportunity for you. And you can do more than 1 concentration as well too. It would just require 2 additional courses over that required 42 credit hours that I talked about. And we also have a number of joint degrees as well, that if you want to combine curriculum from 2 different areas, you can complete a joint degree and complete it in a shorter amount of time, having completed each degree separately. So our MBA offers a number of joint degree offerings. So say, for instance, you want to combine a general business degree like an MBA with something more specialized like our business analytics program. That's an opportunity that you can pursue with our joint degrees. One of the best takeaways I can recommend from today's session is to check out Business Connect. I know there's a lot of information that I'm presenting for you. So if you go to businessconnect.uic.edu, this will give you in-depth information on all of our degree programs. You can look at degree requirements, electives with each of the programs, and really get a good idea of what it'll be like to be a student at UIC Business. And another thing that I want to encourage you to get involved with is, if you pursue a degree at UIC Business, is to get involved in a student organization. Getting the education obviously is very important, but really with any graduate degree in the US, having a strong network is really important, and getting involved with 1 or more student business organizations is how you're going to build that professional network. We have industry experts come and present at these student organizations frequently. Employers will come to them. Oftentimes it's early access to different employers as well too. So getting involved in 1 or more organizations is really important to your success in terms of your overall experience in the program, but also job placement as well. I can't stress this enough that getting involved is really going to be important for you. We also have a dedicated business career center that will help with career placement. And again, make sure you see the Business Career Center in your first couple weeks of studies at UIC. Do not wait until the final semester. Job recruiting or placement in the US is a challenge for you international students. I won't sugarcoat that. But if you start your job search early and have a good career plan and work with our Business Career Center, you can be set up for success. They will help with resume development, making sure that you have a strong LinkedIn profile, and also let you know what companies are coming on campus to recruit. And this is just a sampling of some of the companies that hire at UIC. So all of the big 4 firms are represented, finance, tech, etc. One of the great things about the Chicago business community is that there's no one sector that stands out. So we are a large hub for transportation, technology, banking, and finance, and those companies are all represented well within the Chicago region, and also come and hire at UIC. Okay, in terms of the application requirements, the application process is done fully online. There is a $70 application fee. and $100 credential evaluation fee that goes along with that. UIC does not accept outside credential evaluations such as WES, so keep that in mind. We do require 2 short application essays along with your resume or CV. And then we'll also ask that you scan and upload your transcripts and mark sheets for admissions consideration. In addition, the TOEFL or IELTS is required. And then for applicants to the MBA program, we do require an interview as well too. So one of the questions I know that came into the chat was, will there be an application fee waiver? We will have it. We do evaluate this on a case-by-case basis. And what I will do after today's webinar is to send out an email with additional details on how you can do this. But we are allowing for a limited number of waivers for fall 2025. But you will need to submit your resume, program of interest, unofficial TOEFL scores, and your transcripts or mark sheets to me by email. My email address is included in here, and you will need to submit this all by March 1. We will review if you're qualified for a potential waiver, and then let you know if you've been approved for a waiver as well too. But there are a limited number of application fee waivers available for the fall 2025 semester. We also do require letters of recommendation for our programs. The MS in marketing only requires 1, and all of our other programs require 2. These can be either professional or academic. And when you start your application, what you'll do is send out input your contact information for your recommenders. That will then go out to them. They'll complete an online form and it comes back to us. They do not need to write a formal letter, but they do have that option to upload that as well. And for all of our programs, the GMAT or GRE has the option to be waived. With the MBA and MS in marketing programs, those are waived automatically. And then other programs do require that you submit a waiver request. Some of those are automatic, but again, check your program of interest for what the GMAT or GRE requirements are. In addition, if you do submit a competitive GMAT or GRE score, this can help with admissions consideration and also scholarship opportunities too. And then in terms of tuition and fees, for international students, tuition and fees are approximately $21,000 per semester. And typically our graduate programs take anywhere from 2 to 4 semesters to complete. So, if you're looking at completing a program in 2 semesters, you're looking roughly about, $42,000. And if you're looking at 3 semesters, a little over $60,000 in tuition and fees. Housing and living expenses would be an additional cost, but this at least gives you a good benchmark of what it would cost to attend UIC. And in terms of the application deadlines, we are accepting for fall 2025, and that deadline is April 1st. If you feel like that is a little bit too rushed, we do have a spring intake as well for January of 2026, and that deadline is September 1st. One of the questions I know that came in is regarding scholarship opportunities, and all admitted applicants, including international students, are considered for scholarship opportunities. And typically about a third of our students receive some type of funding that can range typically anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 per semester. So that will help offset the cost of tuition. In addition, we have a number of graduate hourly positions, and students can work up to 20 hours per week. And for graduate hourly positions, the salary is close to about roughly approximately $30 an hour. So it will definitely help with those living expenses and also give you really good practical experience as well. Okay, now I want to open it up for Q&A. And again, if you have any additional questions after today, please feel free to reach out to us. You can request more information and also view our view book as well too with the QR code. So, Sabhat, are you going to
Yes.
oversee the
Yes,
Q&A?
I am gonna start with that. Jeff, you can stop sharing your screen if you need. Thank you
Okay.
so much
Sure.
for your very detailed presentation. I hope that answers quite a few questions which had come in around scholarship, application fee waivers, etc. We will be taking the other questions up shortly. So given the time consideration, yes.
I just had a quick point to mention. So about the application fee waiver, it's a limited number of waivers. So if you apply for a waiver and you do not get a waiver, it does not mean that you're not going to be getting in. You're not going to be admitted. So it does not
Yes.
have any implications on your chances of getting admitted. These application waivers are very few in number. So you not getting a waiver has no indication of like whether your chances of getting getting admitted. So I just wanted to
Correct.
mention
Great.
that because there's a like a sort
That's a
of
good
Oh,
point.
thank
you
you.
may think that
Thank you.
right?
Yes, that
Yeah.
does help. Okay, so I'm going to jump straight into the Q&A, keeping the time consideration in mind. Professor Kamble, I would like to start with you. There is a question from Divya who wants to know, to what extent can AI-driven pricing models balance profitability with ethical considerations such as price discrimination, consumer fairness, market manipulation? And how should organizations sort of navigate these challenges while trying to maintain the ethical considerations and also maintaining a competitive advantage?
No, that's absolutely, it's a fantastic question. And that is something that is on the minds of all AI professionals that are working on this in this pricing domain. And so it's a very hot area of research as well to think about like what kind of constraints we should be imposing on these AI based algorithms on pricing so that they respect these fairness and ethical constraints. So I think so this is something that is, so for example, I teach a course on reinforcement learning with business applications in which a big part of it is on pricing. And I invest about a third of the course talking about the kind of pitfalls that companies need to be aware of. If they deploy these algorithms, what can go wrong? In what ways can discrimination arise? In what ways can these algorithms learn something that you don't want them to learn? And so I think so there are some, as academics, we are trying to create a repository of like what are the things that could go wrong, and so that we can inform organizations as to like, hey, these are the things you need to be aware of. Here are the kind of guardrails you need. And so I think you're absolutely right. A very holistic approach is necessary. You can't just say that, hey, I'm going to apply AI to the problem, just forget about it. And so this is a really important area of research. It's an important area of practice. And I think we are just in the early stages of consolidating those learnings and transferring them over to the industry.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Kamble. Jeff, coming to you next, quite a few questions revolving around the same theme. So I'm going to, with a lot of international students coming and studying in the US, and, most of these students are coming to the US for the first time. They are looking at stay back options. They are looking at return on investment. So can you speak a little bit about what are the career services or the assistance opportunities which are provided by the university for these all of these international students who come in? It could be in the form of incubators, it could be in the form of networking events on campus, etc., which will sort of help them enter the job market easily once they are done with their master's or MBA.
Yeah, and I talked a little bit about it, but again, I can talk more in depth. We do have a number of opportunities. So our Business Career Center would be the first recommendation that I have for all of our students to make sure they get involved with, and have regular conversations with a career counselor. In terms of a business incubator, we do have an entrepreneurship concentration and entrepreneurship related courses that they could take advantage of. And then our student organizations would be another great resource. We do have a number of events throughout each semester too that provide great networking opportunities. So we just had one on consulting. We'll have one on the intersection of healthcare and business coming up. So those are some really great opportunities for students to get involved and make those connections.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff. I hope that answers Ruhan, Rushabh, Sahej. A lot of you had your questions revolving around that. So I hope that gives you an answer. Coming back to you, Professor Kamble, one very important question which had come up is how can AI help companies, sort of determine the price and sell a particular object? In a time like India, in India currently, a lot of startups are coming up, a lot of new products are being launched into the market every day. So how can AI help these budding entrepreneurs or these new products which come up by helping them sell their product at the right price in a competitive market?
Right. So that's a big challenge of when you're doing pricing, when you have no data in the past, you're introducing new product. So earlier in the previously people used to conduct market surveys, but now I think you have a great technology at your disposal, which is generative AI. So you can actually create agents using LLMs uh, to sort of align with the different profiles that you are trying to sell to. Like, for example, if your target market are like college professionals versus like, stay-at-home moms, so you can think of like all kinds of different sort of groups, and you can create agents simulating those groups and have these AI agents answer these questions. And so that can give you like a synthetic survey of like what is a reasonable price. And then you can combine that with like maybe insights from how your competitors are pricing, how nearby products are being priced in the markets, and so on and so forth. So I think using generative AI for creating synthetic survey data is actually a really great opportunity for entrepreneurs, at least in these days. So
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor. Jeff, of course, I see you were replying to my next question. So I'll move on to another one, which is a question which is on everyone's mind, everyone who's attended this masterclass. Can you help? Can you give them a few key pointers of the things that they need to make sure they have their, they have crossed their dots and tick their I's when they're looking at their application? So what is it that would really help them sort of stand out in the application process?
Great question. I would say more importantly than anything, just follow the process and requirements that we have. For instance, your resume and CV, I would say keep it under 2 pages, especially if you have less than 5 years of professional work experience. And really, if you do have work experience, highlight that. A lot of times we will see resumes that have very little explanation of their job, but they will have information on 5 projects that they did in undergrad. And while that's important, we do want to see career growth and development in the resume. Also making sure that you complete the essays accordingly. Ours are very short. Each one needs to be about 250 words in length. So we prefer succinct. You do not need to write a full 5-page essay for us. So keeping that short and sweet. And then the other thing that we offer is an optional essay too, that if something is unique about your academic background, or if there's work gaps, or if you had a low undergraduate GPA, we really appreciate that you take the time to explain why that happened. Otherwise, as admissions professionals, we've been in this business a long time. Our minds tend to go a little wild with what we think may have happened. So we really appreciate, if there was, say for instance, you had a bad semester and you explained that, hey, there was family issues going on. We appreciate that you've taken that time to explain that to us. And we tend to be very much more compassionate and empathetic once we kind of know the backstory.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff. Professor Kamle, coming back to you, my next question is from Sibi, who wants to know, in meta marketing, when a product price is changed, then there is a change in the results that the ads bring in. How does assess demand how do you assess the demand when you don't have control over Meta's algorithm?
Yeah, so right. So in that case, so this is often the case that when you take some certain actions such as pricing, what you observe is just the change in the demand, right? And you cannot really open the black box and figure out like what's going on, how the market is sort of behaving. And in those cases, these incremental pricing algorithms, it definitely does not mean that you cannot do anything. It just means that you have to use these incremental pricing algorithms, which are basically, I change the price, what's the net impact on the output that I'm seeing? And depending on how that output is moving, I change the price accordingly. So there are these adaptive sort of pricing approaches. And this would fall into what I talked about as reinforcement learning.
Yes.
Reinforcement learning would rely on just that like local output and like, how do I change my prices in response to that local output so as to optimize them. So you do not need a complete picture. That's the beauty of these algorithms. You can only use like local feedback that you're getting from whatever black box. It could be Meta's, it could be Meta's from Google's ad platform. Whatever information you're getting, you can use that to optimize your prices. So reinforcement learning is the keyword. You can look into that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I see Jeff has answered quite a few of my questions. And we have gone a little over time. I'm sure the two of you have a packed day ahead. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, Professor Kamble and Jeff, for this wonderful and very, very insightful session, and to the wonderful audience who were here with us right till the end. I hope you've managed to answer most of your questions and queries. In case if you have any further questions or queries, please feel free to reach out to us at Seed Global Education, and we will be able to help you. So thank you once again. We look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Right. Thank you all.
Great being here. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.